Manosphere, we need to set the stage of what we're actually going to be talking about. So, a
Mhm.
lot of this information comes from this article. And what's the name of the article again?
It was an article in Business Insider, and it's titled "The Gen Z Gender Gap is Widening, and the Influence of Manosphere Podcasters Cannot Be Ignored." It came out today, and it's got a lot of interesting information in it.
So, everybody's going to ask, what are they talking about this gender gap among Gen Z? So, it's a phenomenon that's happening between obviously the genders and Gen Z,
Mhm.
men and women. Um, and it's happening with political divergence, right? Young women have become substantially more liberal over the past several years, whereas views held by young men have mostly remained the same. The divergence is leading to a gender gap in political views that is wider and diverging more rapidly than what is seen in previous generations. You know, some of this stuff is because of major things that's been happening. You
Yeah.
have political events like the election of Donald Trump. You had the Me Too movement. You had the Supreme Court decision to overturn abortion rights, basically
Yeah.
overturning Roe v. Wade.
Mhm.
Um, all of these things have had a really strong impact on women, and women are just like, yo, to hell with all of this. Y'all are belittling us, putting us down after all the work that feminists had done in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. We're not going back to that. Now,
Right.
because women are standing up for themselves and saying that we're not going to take it, right? There's been a backlash from young men
Mhm.
who said, you know, the Me Too movement has gone a little bit too far. Uh, Basically, women, they're scared because women are gaining more and more control, gaining more and more of a voice. And they're also really scared of changing of the gender norms, right? What isn't discussed in this article but should be discussed is the fact that women don't need men no more financially, by and large, because women are out here getting their money. So
Mhm.
what are men bringing to the table as far as dating is concerned? It can't be just your finances, though that is the case still in some situations.
Right.
But you guys got to bring more to the table than money and dick, like
Yeah.
because also women now have toys that's better than what you got. So if you ain't got, you know, if they don't need your money and they don't need that instrument, you need to bring something else to the table. This is a shock because these young men are saying, well, the generations before them didn't have to deal with this.
Mhm.
Well, guess what? Every generation evolves.
Yeah.
You need to evolve and adapt. And they're not Gen Z, not every male, we're talking generalities here.
Mhm.
Gen Z males are pushing back against feminism and embracing more of toxic masculinity. So you said you had notes before we actually go to the manosphere of how these things are cultivating within these young men. But let's break down some of your thoughts on the article.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, Gen Z men are, for lack of a better word, they're struggling. They're struggling in society today. It is not all their fault, right? They're falling behind in education,
Mm-hmm.
educational engagement, and outcomes. Um, the rates of young male economic inactivity has risen considerably over the past 20 years.
So that's basically dudes ain't getting no money.
They ain't got no money.
They ain't got
Uh,
no money, ain't getting no money.
right. Sexual activity has dropped. There is
Well,
a loneliness crisis.
yeah.
Suicide rates have risen.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
they're coming of age in a time of romantic rejection,
Mm-hmm.
alienation,
Mm-hmm.
economic failure, and they need an enemy.
Mm. Mm.
They need a definable enemy
Mm-hmm.
that will say, you know, it makes me think honestly of the time of enslavement
Ooh, okay.
and how there are more overseers than there were masters. There were more, and who do you think was more pissed off when we received emancipation?
Oh, those overseers.
Right?
Yeah.
Because now they had some, they didn't have the money, but they had a position.
They had the power.
They had power above,
Yeah.
not real power. It was loaned power.
Yeah,
it wasn't real power.
It was.
But they had a position above. And now they're having to work alongside. Yes.
Yeah. There was a hierarchy. Yeah.
Who joined the posses? Those old overseers. They're the ones who are doing that. So it makes me think of the same thing. People need an external enemy. And who better than the people you were above, but who are now seeing higher educational outcomes, who are closing the wage gap. It's not closed yet.
Yeah, closing. They ain't closed yet. Yeah.
But we're seeing more economic growth. Black women in this country are still number one in terms of entrepreneurship and starting new businesses. You're seeing women advocate for mental health and therapy and things like that, and breaking generational curses and setting boundaries and things like that. So these are people that you used to be in a position of power over. And now people are telling you you have to work alongside them.
Yeah.
It's
and
easier.
Men aren't taking it well. Yeah.
They're not gonna take it.
Right. So it's interesting. It's funny that I never even thought about that. If you like that clip, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to catch up on all of our latest content. Don't forget to hit the notification button when you do subscribe so you can get updated every time we release content. We release content every day, whether it's an actual show or clips from the shows. So go ahead and subscribe, like, comment. Also, don't forget our Patreon page where you can find our Talking Straight-ish and After Hours Uncensored episodes. That's patreon.com/unsolicited perspectives. But once again, thank you again for listening to Unsolicited Perspectives. I'm your host, Bruce Anthony, and I'm going to catch you next time. I'll holla.